Okay, so we have three big updates. Number one, military parade tomorrow to celebrate the U.S. Army's 250th birthday. You won't believe what Democrats are saying about it. Number two, Iran has already retaliated against Israel for those strikes. And of course, there's a disagreement on how America should respond. And number three, Gavin Newsom celebrates a district court ruling that ultimately was overturned. Let's start here.
It is going to be quite a show here. It is the 250th anniversary of the Army. It's also Flag Day, and it just happens to also be the 79th birthday of President Donald Trump. It'll all begin early in the morning out on the mall with a fitness competition, and then there will be an all-day festival, music and food. But the centerpiece here is that parade, and it's going to stretch out across over a mile with around 6,600 soldiers or so, including reenactors and those dressed in uniforms from times past. You'll have 50 military aircraft involved in a flyover, Black Hawk, Chinook choppers among those, and 150 military vehicles, including, and a lot of people anxious to see this, the M1 Abrams tanks, as well as the Bradleys, 60 tons plus rolling through the streets on each one of those tanks. And that's a concern. These streets are a concern as well. Should be a big day.
All right, so it's no secret in this first story. This is all about the U.S. Army's 250th birthday, which is tomorrow, and why President Trump is hosting a mega parade. And conveniently, it's his birthday as well. So, of course, what do you have? Democrats on social media saying that not only is this embarrassing, but this is President Trump depicting our country as if it's a dictatorship and soldiers are going to look like they're from North Korea and Russia. I know that is a bunch of bull and disrespectful, I believe, to veterans and definitely people who paid the ultimate sacrifice. So that's why I want to dedicate the first part of this video to debunking this and pushing back. Now, here's one post. Breaking. This is so embarrassing. U.S. soldiers are practicing in Washington, D.C. for Trump's military birthday parade this weekend. This reminds me of North Korea. How about you? And as you guys can see here on the screen, these are military soldiers practicing for the parade. The way they are dressed represents the certain period of history for the U.S. Army, Vietnam, Desert Storm, the Second World War. That's what I'm assuming by looking at this clip.
Oh, yeah.
Now, let me show you an example of how delusional they really are and why this is all about politics for them. Gavin Newsom, who hosted his press conference last night, which was an utter waste of time, had this to say about the parade. Take a listen.
It's a vulgar display. It's the kind of thing you see Kim Jong-un, you see it Putin, you see it with dictators around the world that are weak and just want to demonstrate strength. Weakness masquerading as strength. To fet the dear leader on his birthday, what an embarrassment. Honestly, that's about as small as it gets. How weak do you have to be to commandeer the military to fet you on your birthday in a vulgar display of weakness? That's Donald Trump.
Yeah, so what Gavin Newsom is doing there is playing politics, trying to capitalize on the moment. But what he is failing to disclose to people who are listening is that U.S. military parades have a long tradition. This is nothing new, ladies and gentlemen. If you guys are curious about the people who has already done it, look no further than President Obama. He did not have heavy tanks or heavy vehicles at the military parade. That is true. However, Bush Sr. in 1991, he did. In fact, he had 8,000 troops, tanks, and aircraft along Constitution Avenue. Kennedy in 1961 had armored tanks, missile systems, naval vessels, and 16,000 service members and civilians. And the big one came from Eisenhower twice, featured large military presence, including 22,000 personnel, atomic cannon, and missiles. So nothing new there. And by the way, the governor claims that Russia and North Korea are the only countries that are doing things like this. Well, once again, here are the facts. France does it on an annual basis on July 14th. The United Kingdom, they do it on an annual basis as well. 1,400 soldiers, 200 horses, 400 musicians. India does it on January 26th. Israel does it. South Korea does it. Poland does it. I mean, I can keep going on, but I think you guys are getting the point. I just want to make sure you guys hear the other side to it. You make up your own mind if you believe this military parade is what Democrats are claiming it to be. And here is a take from Tim Walz and what he wants to happen tomorrow.
And whenever I come out here, I take great joy in running my mall route and down around the monuments or whatever, and it was horrific down there today. I'm just going to tell you, it just looks wrong, feels wrong. And so I think I'm going to go be with a few thousand folks who kind of have the tradition that there is a separation there, that we don't need this, and this is not Pyongyang on a Saturday. So I'm just going to confess to it. Might get me in trouble, whatever. I have never so hoped for rain in my life. So, there you go.
So obviously that was a purely disgusting take from the governor. Now, before we go any further, if you guys have been getting value from our channel, please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to support us further, you can go to the links in the description below, buy us a cup of coffee, shop our merch store where we just dropped a new t-shirt called I Support ICE. And don't forget, you can follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcast. So that was Governor Tim Walz, who was almost a heartbeat away from the presidency. And he's hoping that it rains tomorrow. In fact, most Democrats are. And this is the problem with our country. It's a free country, of course. Everybody has a right to their First Amendment, free speech. But there's no secret that this type of rhetoric is not conducive to what they say they want. They say they want peace. They want this country to unite. But when you continue to speak this way, especially when it involves disrespecting military service members, I find that to be counterproductive. I think that's fair to say. Wouldn't you agree? And the other thing we should note that warrants our attention are the protests. Thousands will be happening across the country for what? Because they want to fight against President Trump. And they're protesting on the same day as the U.S. Army's birthday. Take a listen.
There are more than 2,000 peaceful protests planned for tomorrow. People are showing up everywhere, and I think that's going to send a very clear message that on Flag Day, on the 250th anniversary of the founding of the Continental Army, the most quintessentially American thing we can do is stand up and in one voice say, in America, we don't do kings.
All right, so there you go. I'm telling you, it's a political reality TV show at this point. Instead of protesting President Trump, what people should be doing tomorrow is celebrating the Army's birthday. That's just me. You know, obviously I'm a veteran, I serve, so I have a certain bias to it. And quite frankly, even if this was Kamala Harris doing the same thing, right? Let's say she was the one who was elected president. I just don't understand why I'd be wasting my time protesting on the U.S. Army's birthday. It just doesn't register for me. I don't know about for you guys. However, here is the View summarizing exactly why they disagree with this move. Take a listen.
But I don't understand this. I can't be the only one. When I think of military parades, I think of Russia, I think of North Korea. I have these visuals of people saluting and doing things, and that's just not what I think of when I think of the U.S. And Senator Rand Paul said, we were always different than these images. And we were proud not to be that. And then you also think about the conversations about cutting waste. And here you've got, like, how much is this going to cost? $40 million.
On the low end, yeah.
Yeah.
On the low end, up to
Who
45
thinks,
million.
like,
Yeah.
okay, let's cut, like, all the aid and the school lunches and all the good stuff, but let's throw a parade that harkens World War II propaganda and just throw the money that way. I can't keep up.
Well, the good news here is nobody depends on her to keep up, especially her opinion. I played the clip to show you exactly the way the left sees this. And it's just unfortunate that they, I think, are allergic to seeing anything positive in regards to what President Trump decides to do. He's celebrating the U.S. Army's 250th birthday. So even if it wasn't his birthday, think about this. Even if it wasn't his birthday and he was doing this, they'd be saying the same thing. At the end of the day, we're talking about the 250th. I would expect a parade like this. I really would. Okay, so in our other story here, which is continuing to develop and it's breaking news, by now you've heard that Israel did strike Iran already, and Iran has retaliated. What I'm going to do is kind of show you the most up-to-date news that we have at this point, and then talk about the political conversation that's happening online as a result. Let's start here.
We're going to begin with the breaking news in our world lead with this live look at the skies
Above Tel Aviv, Israel, Iran this evening has begun retaliating for Israel's unprecedented strikes on its military leadership and its nuclear weapons program. Iran saying that Israel is now, quote, facing a dark night ahead. Last night and today, Israel's strikes hit Iran's nuclear facilities and killed the commander-in-chief of Iran's Revolutionary Guard, plus other top military brass. And now Iran has launched a barrage of missiles toward Israel. This was the moment that the first wave of Iranian missiles hit Tel Aviv, some missiles being intercepted, but at least one striking a building, sending a huge plume of smoke into the air, lighting parts of this building on fire. A second wave of missiles arrived a short time later, raining down over the population center of Tel Aviv. Two sources in Israel tell CNN that the United States and other countries helped Israel intercept some of the Iranian missiles tonight. Iran says dozens have been injured in these strikes and warns Iran will pay a heavy price for striking population centers. They say crosses a red line.
Okay, so that was just a summary of what's happened up to this point. Now, Iran has promised that not only are they going to retaliate against Israel, as you've seen already, that they actually might retaliate against American armed forces, because it's being reported that the U.S. is already assisting Israel in striking down these missiles from Iran. So at that point, we have a dilemma, especially for people on the right. And I think Matt Walsh summed it up perfectly. He said this: Israel is its own country and perfectly capable of taking care of itself. We do not need to be involved in this and should not be. Our country is under invasion. Our cities are besieged by crime and dysfunction. Those are the problems we should be focused on fixing. Our people need to be protected and prioritized by the leaders we've elected. America first, always. And this leads us to probably two of the biggest questions at this point, given everything that's occurred, is one, do Americans actually support Israel? If we do support Israel, do we support using American troops and definitely American resources to fight against Iran? Well, here's a perspective from Charlie Kirk. Take a listen.
I think overwhelmingly Americans stand with Israel. The question is, do they support America getting offensively involved in this war? And I can say definitively, especially with younger Trump supporters, the answer is no. They want to have Israel fight Israel's war, to stand with Israel, intelligence sharing, defensive measures, totally defensible, and I think is legitimate because over 100,000 Americans, as Trey said, are in Israel. And America and Jordan have a long history of having defensive measures to protect civilians. But the question will be in the coming days and weeks, will there be clamoring for an offensive American strategy against Iran? Will some people say, hey, we can finally wipe them out. We have them on the ropes.
Yeah, so that perspective by Charlie Kirk, I believe, is very sound. I actually lean more that way personally. I believe that country should be able to do its own thing. If they want to get into this fight with Iran, go ahead, have at it. But we should have nothing to do with it. Now, that's one piece of the MAGA world that thinks that way, right? Because there's more diversity of thought on the right than there is on the left, because there's other individuals who lean right who disagree with President Trump when it comes to Israel. In fact, they say he's bought and paid for by Israel, and ultimately America is Israel's puppet. Now, the largest voice behind that type of thinking would be someone like a Candace Owens, as an example. Now, what's interesting is when you look at this situation on the left, there are people who are Democrats coming out and agreeing with President Trump and his approach on this, and ultimately also agree with the idea that we should not be getting involved. And one of the people I was surprised to see on the left who agreed with that is Tim Kaine.
I'm an armed services member and father of a member of the military and a Virginian, a very pro-military state. My sole focus now is I'm going to do everything I can to keep the United States from getting involved in another war in the Middle East, especially a prolonged forever war. 20 years of two wars in the Middle East should have taught us something. And so I was pleased when the statement of Secretary Rubio came out last night that the U.S. was not involved in this. I was very surprised that Israel launched this strike 3 days before the U.S. was to have a diplomatic discussion with Iran about their nuclear program. That discussion might have gone well, might have gone bad, but to launch a military attack before a diplomatic discussion, I was surprised and disappointed in that. But I'm not a Knesset member. I'm not a member of the Israeli government or the Iranian government. I'm a U.S. Senator, and I'm going to do everything I can to keep the United States from getting involved in another war in the Middle East. That's my sole focus right now.
See, this is an example where there should be bipartisan support. you should continue to see other Democrats come out and root for the president to be successful here. In all of these videos we do every day, the most frustrating thing I see is how they root against him. They want him to fail. So I do give Tim Kaine some credit here, even if he doesn't really talk about President Trump in that statement directly. He's still speaking as if he wants the president to be successful in his administration in this regard. We should be demanding more of that from our leaders on both sides. Now, here's an interesting perspective that we have to show you because, again, we're going to show you what everybody is saying. And we got to include the war hawks here, the people who get up in the morning looking for America to get into another war. And I think the best person who represents that side of things would be John Bolton. Here's what he said on CNN earlier today.
Ambassador, do you think the United States is closer now to being pulled into another war in the Middle East than it was yesterday? That is the fear of Senator Tim Kaine, who just spoke to John Berman.
Yeah, well, they've got a completely distorted view of the situation. There has been a war in the Middle East since October the 7th, 2023, and Israel has now simply opened a new front in that war. I believe the United States should be helping Israel conduct these attacks. The Iran nuclear weapons program is not an Israeli problem. It's an American problem. It's a problem of global nuclear proliferation. We let it go on far too long. What the United States needs to do now, although I don't have any idea whether the Trump administration will do it, is provide all the intelligence we can on what Iran's response might be, get American forces into the region to defend Israel, to defend our deployed forces, to defend our Arab friends in the Gulf region. And then also we should be beginning to plan phase 2 of this. Given the destruction of the Israeli military facilities, it's now time to think of the campaign for regime change in Iran, because there will never be peace and security in the Middle East until that regime is gone. I think the Israeli attacks could well constitute a major destabilizing consequence inside Iran as the people look at what the Ayatollahs and their followers have brought to the country.
Yeah, so listen, guys, there's no simple way to actually talk about this particular issue. So I'll do my best to give you the bottom line. First off, it's very clear to me that taxpayer dollars has been funding both sides of this. Remember how much money Iran got under Biden and also got under Obama, and how much money Israel has got from us as well. So just think about that for a second. I guess put that in one corner. And then in another corner, understand that we have American forces in the region. We have American military bases in the region. And if Iran strikes one of those American assets, yeah, that's going to be a problem as well. So what does President Trump do then? Does he respond swiftly to let them know that, hey, don't touch American assets? Or is he reserved in that regard? Third, there is something that John Bolton did say that I do agree with, which is, I guess, irony here, is that in the Middle East, nothing operates in the way that we think it should because we're in America. The wars that are always raging over there have a religious component to it, a historical component to it, that no matter how much money, military soldiers, and diplomacy that America throws at it, it's not going to stop it permanently. You may put a Band-Aid on it. You may temporarily delay things, but sooner or later, the lid will be blown off again.
There will be questions about what is the role for America.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Charlie completely. Look, we have stuff all over the region. We have assets there. We have bases there. We have embassies that have Americans there. I think that we made it very clear President Trump went out of his way to try everything he could do to stop this, and he made it very clear to the Iranians that we were not participating in this offensively. There was stuff that went out before this took place. We worked with our allies. We sent messages out to the Iranians that something might happen. It looked like it was, it was trending in that direction, but we were not participating in this. So we tried everything we could to let the Iranians know that we were not actually participating in this action. But if they retaliate and they kill Americans in the process, or they strike our bases, they strike our assets, there will be consequences. Make no mistake about it.
All right, so that's why I called it a conundrum, ladies and gentlemen, because at the end of the day, nobody wants another war right now. Number two, there are reports out there that say that President Trump knew about all this already, and he goaded Iran in regards to his social media posts to make sure they were caught off guard by Israel. And number three, some people believe we're already in this war, even if we don't want to accept it. And that is a sad reality, ladies and gentlemen. And the other sad thing about this story is one of the perspectives that is out there coming from the left that I didn't show you in the beginning because, quite frankly, It's not of any substance. It's actually the most ignorant thing you'll hear from someone who is an elected leader. And we're talking about the governor out of Minnesota, Tim Walz. I want you to listen carefully to his reaction to Israel striking Iran and what he thinks should happen moving forward.
Iran has to retaliate in their mind, I'm sure. And now, who is the voice in the world that can negotiate some type of agreement in this? Who holds the moral authority? Who holds the ability to do that? Because we are not seen as a neutral actor. And we maybe never were. I don't want to tell anybody that. I think there's a lot of people that say you always leaned one way in this. But I think there was at least an attempt to be somewhat of the arbitrator in this. We saw President Carter do it with Begin and Sadat. We've had certain wins along the way that were actually mutually beneficial both ways. Now I ask who that is. And I mean, consistently over and over again, we're going to have to face the reality. It might be the Chinese. And that goes against everything they say they're trying to do in terms of the balance of power. So I would just have to say my heart goes out for this. Ukraine continues to go on. Gaza continues to be a humanitarian disaster. And now it's expanded even further.
Yeah, so just to be fair here, if this escalates between Israel and Iran to a full-out war that drags on, that definitely doesn't help President Trump and his resume, especially as he continues to celebrate the fact that no new war started under Trump 1.0. That is true, okay? But more importantly, secondly, for Tim Walz, the governor, an American citizen, an elected official who served in the military, to claim that the only country who has moral authority to negotiate peace would be China. Tell me you don't know what you're talking about without telling me you don't know what you're talking about. Even I know I have a certain level of ignorance with what's happening in the Middle East. I may have deployed over there in Afghanistan, but that doesn't mean I'm an expert on the geopolitics over there. But even I know that China would never be the moral authority when it comes to negotiating peace in this world. We know that. They're thick as thieves. But hey, again, I like to show you guys what all sides are saying. You let me know if I'm in the right area here. Now, let's move to our next story. And that is another sad reality that is happening here domestically. Senator Alex Padilla out of California. We know he barged into the press conference the other day that Kristi Noem was at. He was, thrown out or struggled to be thrown out. He's resisting against it, ultimately detained. And then now we have this whole political TV show going back and forth. Well, Democrats today are demanding what? Kristi Noem's resignation. Take a listen.
So let me say, is the second most senior member of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem needs to come to our committee and answer questions. ICE needs to show their faces. No more masks like 1,800 bank robbers or Russian KGB agents in the streets. And stop terrorizing families. So what can you do at home? It's No King's Day this Saturday. 2,000 rallies across America. Americans need to show up, because if we don't show up, democracy dies.
So as you can tell, and we spoke about it at the beginning of this video today about this No Kings protest that is happening on the same day as President Trump's birthday and the U.S. Army's 250th birthday. And that's what Democrats are looking to do in some way. This might have been actually intentional from the senator. Maybe he wanted to make a show so he could get more attention on the protests that they want to happen tomorrow. Now, they claim they want it to be peaceful, but let's get real. We know it's going to turn violent in some way, shape, or form. Now, on the debate of whether or not Kristi Noem should resign, listen, I'll tell you what, if you want Kristi Noem to resign, then you guys should resign your positions in Congress, because no elected official should ever be getting into some struggle with law enforcement and disrupting an official press conference from the cabinet member. Now, Speaker Johnson yesterday was asked about this and the potential disciplinary action from Congress and what it should look like and what he thinks they should do. Here's what he said.
I think the senator's actions, my view is it was wildly inappropriate. You don't charge a sitting cabinet secretary and everybody can draw their own conclusions. I think that behavior at a minimum is, it rises to the level of a censure. I think there needs to be a message sent by the body as a whole that is not what we are going to do. That's not how we're going to act.
Censure, an extremely rare move. The speaker left the Capitol before irate members of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, you see them there, went to his office to protest Padilla's treatment.
Now, obviously, there's two different conversations here. There's the legal conversation in regards to should Senator Alex Padilla be censured in Congress for his behavior. And then there's a political conversation. Now, obviously, politically, Democrats, they lose on this because no one wants to see this. Even if you believe he was justified, again, this behavior from an elected official politically, there's no return on investment, if that makes sense. Now, legally, the question is, could he be censured? Well, I guess that's up to the senators, and I'm not of the opinion at this point that that's actually going to happen. Now, here is Stephen A. Smith, because his take has been going viral on how he sees it. Take a listen.
Here you have this senator, Alex Padilla. Can Kristi Noem speak? Could you have waited till she finished to ask your questions? To shout your questions? You are a senator, right? You couldn't wait? So that was just you out of control because you were just losing it, huh? You, a United States senator, couldn't compose yourself and let the head of Homeland Security finish her thoughts before you asked the question. Couldn't do that, huh? Couldn't do it, huh?
Yeah, any average American who saw that clip is just going to say, like, what is wrong with that senator? Like, who does that? All right, this is behavior that I believe is unbecoming of people who serve in Congress. But let's get real. You're talking about people who get DUIs, people who beat up their spouses, people who are doing serious hard drugs, people who are getting caught up in prostitution. All of that happens in Congress. It's just not reported. It all gets swept under the rug. So you think this gentleman, this senator, is really going to be held accountable? Get real, okay? There is a true uniparty in Congress, ladies and gentlemen, and that's why, generally speaking, they never get held accountable. So there's that. Now, let's go to this next story, because this is sweet justice, in my opinion. You already know about the governor, Gavin Newsom, and I'm not going to say Newsom for right now because he's really out of pocket lately. And he held this press conference celebrating because he found a district court judge to rule in his favor that would block President Trump from using National Guard troops and turning over the authority back to the governor. Well, I want you to first hear a little bit of what he said, and then I'm going to show you what happened right after.
To militarize the streets of an American city is an abomination. Founding fathers did not live and die to see that happen in this country for no reason whatsoever than vanity, theater, to instill fear, to incite a response. So I'm very hopeful this order puts that in perspective, and hopefully Donald Trump will immediately back down. The courts have ruled on the Guard. They will be back under my command, and he'll be relieved. Donald Trump will be relieved of his command at noon tomorrow.
Listen, I'm no supporter of the governor, of course, but he's definitely capitalizing on this moment. He's trying to use this, of course, to become the undisputed leader of the Democrat Party. And he's trying to show everyone that he's willing to go toe-to-toe with the president. The unfortunate part is it's the president of the United States. And that's why an appeals court did rule hours right after that press conference that he was giving, like he was there to celebrate, that order from that district court judge has been stayed, meaning it's on hold. And the National Guard can continue to be under the authority of President Trump. Now, we'll hear more next Tuesday about what's really going to happen here. But quite frankly, this is a mess. If I was serving in the military now, especially in that particular unit, I'd be annoyed by this. I'm not too sure they're really paying that much attention. I'd like to think they're not. But again, this is political theater, and it's a waste of energy and a waste of taxpayer dollars if you really think about it. I mean, imagine how much money they're spending on litigation against the administration. It's fascinating. Now, let's hear Fox News' perspective about the ruling from that district court judge, because what's interesting is two things. One, Newsom went to a district court judge in San Francisco, not Los Angeles. Think about that for a second. And two, the ruling that the district court judge delivered was really political in his messaging. He didn't really provide a neutral, unbiased take. He had a lot of political statements in there. Take a listen.
Well, that is part of the concern that I have with many of these opinions. It is a problem when political talking points appear in judicial opinions. And I did think that that happened here. At one point, the court says that Trump is creating disorder by trying to bring in forces to prevent disorder. And that's the type of statement that is collateral to the merits. There are good points of debate here, right? The National Guard is a creature of the states, but there's also a statute that says that the president has this authority and the governor shall issue the order to deploy the National Guardsmen. Now, you can disagree what the word shall may mean, but it's not an invitation to really sort of give these extemporaneous comments on the status of the nation. Or in this case, the judge goes in and questions even the need for any type of action here and belittles the level of violence. It seems pretty clear that Newsom had this judge at hello, and that really undermines the legitimacy of the opinion itself, and it takes away from the fact that there is a good faith debate as to where these lines of authority should be drawn.
So there's a good chance this can get up to the Supreme Court. And, again, it's a waste of time, resources, and it's a huge distraction from what's most important, which is leading this country and making sure that Americans are safe. And I don't see anything wrong with what President Trump was doing here. But more importantly, I want to hear from you in the comments section. Obviously, this was a long video. We talked about so much to catch you up with today's news. But I really want to hear from you. What do you think about the parade that's taking place tomorrow to celebrate the U.S. Army's 250th birthday? And it's also President Trump's birthday. I mean, yeah, it is rare because when has there been a president's birthday and a military branch's birthday on the same day? That's a good point, and it happens to be the 250th. Okay. And then what about Israel striking Iran? Do you agree with my assessment that we should have nothing to do with it? But let's not be naive here. Maybe we already have something to do with it, and there's no way to stop it. And then we get to this whole madness with the senator from yesterday out of California and Governor Gavin Newsom. Just give me your guys' reaction to all of it in the comment section below. Now, in our next video, if you miss everything that led up to the detainment of that senator out of California and the fallout that took place right after, all you have to do is click on that video because it's coming up right now.